Hello and welcome, my friend. It is so good to have you here with me at the close of this day. Tonight, we travel not in body but in imagination, all the way back to a kingdom suspended among the clouds. The Inca Empire, masters of the Andes, left their quiet mark on the peaks and valleys where the air is thin and the stars feel close enough to touch. So go ahead and settle in now, let your pillow nestle just right beneath your head, and feel the weight of the day gently release from your shoulders. Take one deep, slow breath, and let it carry you into a softer state of rest. I am going to share a handful of fascinating, gentle facts about this ancient world, one at a time. There is no need to remember them, and if you drift off somewhere along these quiet paths, that is exactly how it should be. If evenings like this bring you a little peace, I hope you will subscribe, so that this voice can be here for you whenever you need a refuge at bedtime. And now, let us begin. Imagine a wall made of colossal stones, each one weighing many tons, yet carved with such care that they fit together seamlessly without a single drop of mortar. This was the Inca art of ashlar masonry, a marvel of patience and precision. The stones were shaped so perfectly that even a sliver of grass could not find its way between them. And here is the quiet genius of it. During the Earth's gentle tremors, those stones could shift and resettle, riding the motion like a wooden boat on a calm lake. Without rigid cement to crack, the walls simply breathed with the land, and that is why so many of them still stand in peaceful silence after centuries. High in the misty reaches of the Andes, there is a place where the morning clouds part to reveal terraces of emerald green carved into a mountain saddle. That place is Machu Picchu. Built around the year 1450 as a royal estate, it rests there almost weightlessly, as if floating between earth and sky. The polished granite walls catch the first light of dawn in a soft shimmer, and the terraced gardens step gently down the slopes, blending the hand of humans with the shape of nature. Hidden for so long among steep peaks and drifting fog, Machu Picchu remains a silent witness to a people who lived in deep harmony with the land around them. To govern an empire that stretched across thousands of miles without a written alphabet, the Inca turned to a library made not of pages but of thread and knots. They called it the quipu. Delicate cords of cotton or wool in many colors hung in fringes, and along each cord, knots of different sizes and positions held meaning. An official could close his eyes and drift his fingers along the strands, feeling the numbers of a recent census or the stored harvests of a distant valley. It was a tactile record, a poem of data whispered through the fingertips. In that way, memory itself was woven into a textile, alive to the touch. Across the rugged spine of the Andes, the Inca wove a vast, silent web of stone roads known as the Hapak-Yuan. Stretching over 40,000 kilometers, these pathways climbed icy passes, traversed high plateaus, and slipped through cloud forests. They connected remote mountain villages to the sacred capital of Cusco, like quiet arteries carrying the soft flow of trade and messages. Chasqui runners, trained from childhood, padded along these paths, their footsteps barely disturbing the thin air. The road itself became a kind of breath for the empire, a steady rhythm of connection across the highest inhabited places on the planet. In those same high altitudes, the Inca practiced an agriculture of quiet wonder. They cultivated not just one or two kinds of potatoes, but thousands of varieties, creating a living tapestry of tubers in deep purples, sunny yellows, and dusty reds. And they developed a gentle method of preserving these crops that made use of the harsh climate itself. By spreading the potatoes on the cold ground under frosty night skies, then exposing them to the warm sun by day, they slowly freeze-dried them into a lightweight food called chuño. This patient process, handed down through generations, ensured a steady supply of nourishment that could last for years, a peaceful collaboration with the mountain's own changing breath. Imagine, if you will, the silent rhythm of footsteps on ancient stone roads high in the Andes. These were the Chasqui, the elite messengers of the Inca, gliding through the thin mountain air with a purpose that was both urgent and serene. They moved in a sacred relay, passing spoken words and intricate knotted cords known as quipus from hand to hand, coast to cloud-kissed peak. There was a grace in their stride, a steady cadence that carried the heartbeat of an empire across vast distances. Each runner carried not just information, but the quiet responsibility of connection, binding together a sprawling world with whispers and woven threads. Now, let us turn our gaze from these swift messengers to the very heart of that world. From the high passes, the imperial city of Cusco unfolded below, shaped with gentle intent into the form of a puma. This was no accident of stone and mortar, but a conscious design where urban life rested in the paw of a great cosmic cat, a symbol of strength rooted in the earth. The architecture followed the valley's natural curves, its streets and plazas breathing in harmonious rhythm with the hills. There was a serene balance here, a quiet dialogue between the sacred geometry of the city and the wild, untamed world beyond its edges. Every wall and water channel whispered of a connection that honored both the built and the organic. This sense of unity was woven into the very fabric of society through a practice called mita. Think of it not as a tax or a duty, but as a gentle rhythm of reciprocity, where each citizen offered their labor for the common good. Hands united to craft the great terraces that cascaded down mountainsides, and to weave the suspension bridges that swayed gently over deep gorges. This was service offered with a quiet smile, a communal heartbeat that built far more than just stone structures. It fostered a profound feeling of shared purpose, a societal warmth that echoed the sun's own generosity, binding the community together in a circle of mutual care. And just as their labor connected them, so too did their reverence for the sacred. In their world, the very metal we now chase for wealth held a different and more sacred meaning. Gold was not a cold currency, but the very sweat of the sun, a divine perspiration that fell from the heavens to grace their lives. Imagine artisans shaping delicate plates that caught the afternoon's golden glow, their hammers tapping with a reverent gentleness. These ornaments adorned temples and royal fabrics, not as displays of wealth, but as mirrors reflecting celestial energy back to its origin. Each glittering surface was a quiet prayer, a tangible whisper of the sun god's warmth, holding the light of the sky in a timeless, luminous embrace. And finally, let us wander through the breathtaking Andinas, the agricultural terraces that transformed the steep Andean slopes. Picture giant green staircases ascending into the mist, each step a peaceful garden carved with soft precision. These stone structures managed the sacred flow of water, guiding it gently from level to level like a cascading song. Here, in the quiet embrace of the clouds, the Inca grew maize and quinoa, their crops swaying gently in the thin, crisp air. It was a silent symphony of adaptation and grace, where humanity and nature met in a verdant, harmonious dance, sustaining a civilization in the very heart of the sky. The Inca left behind a curious library, not of paper, but of soft cotton and camelid wool. They called it the quipu, a cascade of knotted strings falling from a main cord like a frozen, colorful waterfall. Running your fingers along its length, you could feel intricate bumps where a record keeper encoded data into existence. Colors, knot types, and string positions formed a sophisticated tactile language for census tracts and storehouse inventories. It was writing felt rather than read, a silent conversation with history preserved in thread. Without an alphabet, the Inca wove their civilization's memory into a fabric they could touch and hold, trusting the language of texture to whisper across the centuries. Each knot was a number, a name, a silent fact, waiting to be deciphered by touch alone. High in the Andean peaks, where the air is thin and clouds brush the earth, the Inca sculpted mountains into peaceful art. A network of stone-walled terraces hugged the slopes like a giant's green staircase, preventing rain from sweeping the soil away. Each level created a quiet microclimate, cradling warmth for crops in the cool air. Here, they nurtured thousands of potato varieties, from hardy sorts to delicate flavors, in a sustainable dialogue with the land. These terraces were gentle adjustments to nature, turning wild mountainsides into ordered, life-giving sanctuaries without a single mark of force. The stone walls absorbed the sun's heat by day, radiating it back at night, cradling the crops in a gentle embrace of warmth. Unfurling across the empire was the Hapakyuan, a floating ribbon of stone stretching over 25,000 miles. This quiet artery traversed chasms and deserts, designed for the soft steps of llamas and rhythmic footfalls of messengers. No wheels rolled here, It was a path for a silent symphony of connection, binding distant cities from Colombia to Chile. The stones seemed to hold a vast and organized tranquility where each step on the path echoed the heartbeat of a connected world. These were paths that never rushed, flowing like a calm river of stone across the continent. To animate these stone arteries, the Inca employed casquis, agile runners who glided with spectral grace along the royal roads. They passed messages like batons in a fluid relay between small resting stations called tambos. One runner would sprint through thin air, his lungs burning, to hand a knotted quipu or fresh ocean fish to the next chasqui in a seamless motion. This chain of steady grace transported crisp deliveries, like coastal fish, to the emperor in Cusco hundreds of miles away in mere days. It was not a frantic race but a coordinated flow, a quiet testament to human endurance woven into the land. They ran with a rhythm that matched the land's own breath, a testament to a system where speed was not a frantic dash but a balanced harmony. Tucked within a cloud forest, Machu Picchu rests where mist blankets granite in a pale, ethereal glow. The stonework fits seamlessly without mortar, a miracle of patience where massive blocks interlock with quiet precision. This was born of an understanding of trembling earth. During tremors, stones drift slightly to settle back into place once stillness returns. The fog blurs the line between earth and sky, making the city feel half made of dreams and half of timeless stone. Walking through this citadel is to step into a calm, suspended moment where architecture and nature are woven into an unbreakable fabric that whispers of ancient wisdom. The entire city feels like a breathing sanctuary, where the past is not a memory but a present whisper in the cool, thin air. To the Inca, the very ground beneath their feet was alive. They called her Pachamama, the World Mother, a nurturing presence who provided all sustenance and warmth. The soil was not just dirt, it was her skin, dark and fertile, yielding golden maize and earthy potatoes with a mother's generous hand. In a ritual of deep reverence, they would kneel and press small offerings into the earth, a few coca leaves, a sprinkle of cornmeal, as a gentle thank you for her endless gifts. It was a quiet, ongoing conversation, a symbiotic harmony where the human world and the natural world breathed in perfect rhythm. Imagine standing in that high Andean field, the cool air brushing your face, and knowing you were held by something ancient and loving, something that asked only for your gratitude. In the heart of Cusco, there stood a temple that was a hymn to light. The Coricancha, known as the Golden Enclosure, was once adorned with shimmering sheets of pure gold that seemed to drink in the soft rays of the sun. As dawn broke, the gentle light would filter through the stone niches, igniting those golden surfaces into a cascade of warm, honeyed reflections that spilled onto the cool stone floors. This was a sanctuary dedicated to Inti, the sun god, a place where the divine light was not merely observed but deeply felt, as if the sun itself had come down to rest. Walking through that space would have been like entering a dream of pure radiance, where every glint and sheen was a silent prayer of warmth and life. High in the Andes, where the nights are crisp and the stars seem close enough to touch, the Inca mastered a quiet art. They harnessed the natural rhythm of the mountain frost to preserve their food. Potatoes would be spread out on the cool ground, left to freeze under the silver moon as the high-altitude chill turned their water to ice. When morning came, they would step gently on them, bare feet pressing out the moisture in a slow, ritualistic cadence, a dance of survival and harmony with the land. After days of this cycle, the potatoes transformed into chuño, a lightweight, dried substance that could sleep in storehouses for many peaceful years. It was a silent promise of sustenance, a gift from the frost that required no hurry, only patience. The high pastures of the Andes were home to llamas and alpacas, whose soft coats provided a quiet abundance. Their wool, as gentle as a whisper, was shorn with care and spun into threads that held the warmth of the sun. Weavers then sat at their looms, fingers moving rhythmically to create textiles of intricate, colorful beauty, each geometric pattern a narrative of the mountains and the gods. These fabrics were deeply prized, not just for their utility but for their soulful artistry. The most delicate weaves, with patterns as fine as a spider's web, were set aside for the emperor, a fabric that felt like a constant, gentle hug against the cool Andean air. To touch such a cloth was to feel the heartbeat of the empire, a soft and enduring comfort. The Inca built their cities with a profound sense of belonging, so that their walls seem to rise naturally from the earth. Their architecture quietly mirrors the contours of the surrounding peaks, a dance of stone that echoes the mountain's own majestic forms. The quiet gray granite, cut with such precision, blends so seamlessly into the horizon that the cities feel less like constructions and more like another layer of the ancient landscape. As the sun sets and the colors fade, these stone settlements appear to be dreaming right alongside the mountains, their silhouettes merging in a shared, silent slumber. To stand there would be to feel the world breathe, a place where stone and sky are not separate, but two parts of the same gentle, eternal story. Still here with me? That's quite all right. If you're drifting, let these Andean dreams carry you, but if you're awake, know that the mountains have many more stories to whisper. If you're enjoying this, a like helps other night owls find their way here too. Let your mind wander like a drifting cloud above the ancient Andes. The Inca built a world of quiet marvels, and now we will visit them in your imagination. First, feel the soft touch of a knotted string. The Inca wove memory into colored chords, creating a silent language called quippus. These were not writings but clusters of knots on cotton strands, each twist holding a number, a story, a name. Messengers carried them across mountain passes like whispers of cloth and fiber. Census data, tribute records, and even poems might be stored in their tactile code. Imagine a runner moving lightly along a stone path, a bundle of quippus swaying at his side. In those cords lie the counts of llama herds and the names of distant villagers. Without a single carved letter, the quippus held the empire's memory, flowing through hands and along the winding roads, a soft conversation of thread and color. Now let your awareness settle on the city of Cusco, where stones speak of patience. The Inca-shaped rock as if it were soft clay, their hands guided by a vision of permanence. Massive boulders rise in seamless walls, each giant stone locking with the next, no gap, no crack. They are like a sleeping puzzle, a testament to ancient mastery. Run your imaginary finger along the cool, smooth joint where two boulders meet. There is no mortar, only an impossible perfection, so fine that a knife blade cannot slip between them. It is as if the stones breathe together, settling into place over a long, patient time. This quiet harmony was the Inca's gift, a masonry of the soul. The walls stand not just as barriers but as meditations in stone, inviting you to rest in their stillness. Let your vision float higher into the mist-swirled slopes where the Inca sculpted the mountains themselves. They carved gentle steps into the steep land, called Andenes, like a staircase for giants. These terraces tamed the rain and held the soil, creating ribbon-like gardens that glowed green against the gray stone. At different heights, different crops grew, from maize to potatoes, each level a tiny world of its own. The Andenes were a soft hand on the mountain's shoulder, turning erosion into abundance. Morning mist settles on each step, feeding the roots with dew. Llamas once grazed on these lush terraces, and the air hummed with the quiet life of a floating farm. Even now, the terraces whisper of a gentle way of farming, a dance with the clouds. While the terraces held the earth, a vast network of paths stitched the empire together. The Hapak Unen stretched over 40,000 kilometers, a quiet web of trails and grass-woven bridges. It traversed sharp peaks, desert coasts and cloud forests, linking distant villages like threads in a great tapestry. Runners carried messages and quippus along these routes, the empire breathing through their footsteps. Suspension bridges made of braided grass swayed gently over deep chasms, a testament to lightness and strength. As the wind passes through the fibers, you can almost hear the soft pat of sandals on those ancient stones, a rhythm of unity and peace. And finally, drift through the clouds to the most serene of Inca sanctuaries. High on a mountain ridge, Machu Picchu rests, hidden for centuries from the outside world. Its granite temples and terraces are cradled between emerald peaks, often wrapped in a tender mist. This was a place of quiet nobility, a retreat for the mind and spirit. The stone walls blend with the living rock, and the view stretches over a green abyss of valleys. There is a profound stillness here, as if the city itself is dreaming. Let yourself sink into that peace, the lost city floating above the world, a silent song in stone and cloud. Let the warmth of these ancient wonders cradle you as you drift even deeper into rest. High in the thin crystal air of the Andes, the Inca tended terraced gardens that climbed the steep mountainsides like giant green steps ascending into the clouds. They held a deep and patient knowledge of the land, cultivating thousands of different potatoes and corn, each variety perfectly adapted to a specific altitude and a particular misty microclimate. The golden kernels and the earthen tubers were a warm and steady heartbeat of life, providing gentle nourishment for millions across the high valleys. Imagine the humble potato, so ordinary to us, yet in those quiet heights it was a sacred gift, a source of quiet strength in the cool, thin air. Across this vast and mountainous realm, a network of swift runners called chasqui moved like silent whispers along the ancient stone paths. These elite messengers glided through misty cloud forests and over windswept passes in a seamless, flowing relay, one runner passing the word to the next with the grace of water weaving downhill. They carried spoken messages and intricate knotted quippus, recording numbers and stories with a quiet, tactile elegance. News of a distant coastal arrival would travel with surprising, hushed speed, as if carried by the mountain breezes themselves. This gentle system connected the far edges of the empire in a soft, unbroken thread, keeping the heart of the realm beating in quiet unison. The empire was woven through with a spirit of shared purpose. There was a beautiful communal practice called mita, where every citizen offered their labor to public works, not as a burden but as a natural part of living together. Picture families working side by side under the soft sun, their hands building grand temples and sturdy storehouses that would serve everyone. This rhythm of shared effort created a peaceful reciprocity, a deep understanding that the strength of the community flowed from each person's willing contribution. In return, the community held you safe, like good soil holds a seed, ensuring no one would be left hungry in the long mountain nights. In this world, gold did not glint as a symbol of wealth or power. It shimmered with a far deeper and more tender meaning. The Inca called it the tears of the sun, believing it was a divine and luminous energy, the sacred dew shed by the star that brought life to all things. Artisans shaped this sun metal into delicate figurines, graceful vessels, and shimmering plates, adorning the sacred spaces not to flaunt status, but to honor the living light. Imagine a temple courtyard at the first touch of dawn, where every surface was alive with a soft golden reflection. Bathing the ancient stone in a warm inner glow, that quiet honeyed light seemed to hum with the sun's blessing, a gentle reminder of the celestial source that cradled their entire world. The Inca saw life in all things, from the smallest pebble along a path to the tallest and most distant peak. They felt the deep and abiding presence of the Apis, the great mountain spirits who watched over the valleys with an ancient and steady gaze, day after quiet day. These towering guardians were not cold, lifeless rocks. They were living beings filled with a patient wisdom that the people could almost feel on a still morning. Living in a quiet harmony with the rivers, the wind, and the fertile soil, the people treated the natural world as a family of benevolent spirits. They knew they were held within a vast, breathing landscape, and the silent snow-capped mountains stood as gentle protectors, and in return, the Inca offered a soft whisper of thanks to the spirits who cradled their civilization in a timeless embrace. In the high, quiet world of the Andes, the Inca wove their memories into soft, colorful strings. These were the quippus, a delicate language of knots and threads. There was no written alphabet, only the gentle touch of fingers tracing the cotton or wool. Each knot, each twist of color, held the story of a harvest, a census, or the flow of water through the empire. It was a silent archive, whispering through the hands of those who knew how to listen. And in the clouds, the stones of Machu Picchu rest with a quiet secret. The builders used no mortar, only an almost impossible precision. They shaped each massive block so perfectly that not even a blade of grass could find a space to slip through. This was ashlar masonry, a craft of balance. When the earth trembles, the stones drift slightly, just a breath, and then settle back into a peaceful ancient stillness, as if the mountain itself is sighing.
Imagine now a path, a soft ribbon of stone and earth stretching over 40,000 kilometers across the peaks. The Hapakuan, the royal road, was made not for chariots, but for the steady, quiet pace of llamas and the light feet of messengers. It wound through the mountains in a series of gentle, sloping switchbacks, connecting isolated villages to the heart of the empire. On this path, one could walk for days in a dream, surrounded by the silence of the high passes. And along these paths, figures moved like a flowing breath. The chasqui, the Inca runners, were a living relay. They glided from one small outpost to the next, carrying messages not in words, but in a simple seashell or a small woven quipu held gently in their hands. They ran with rhythmic grace, their breath and footsteps a quiet heartbeat across the vast distances, passing the story from one to another without breaking the calm of the mountain air. Down the steep mountainsides, the Inca carved deep, emerald-green terraces, each one a stair-step for the sun. These tiered gardens were a form of quiet conversation with the land. They captured warm sunlight and channeled thin streams of glacier melt to nourish the soil. Corn and potatoes grew here in serene, orderly rows, a peaceful harmony between the people and the earth. It was a slow, sustainable rhythm, a lullaby of green that still echoes in those high, tranquil places tonight.
Let us drift now into the heart of the ancient Inca world, where every stone and star seemed to breathe in quiet unison. The city of Cusco was not simply built, but rather dreamed into form, shaped like a great puma resting upon the earth. This puma was a symbol of strength, yes, but also of a deep and grounded peace that flowed through the valley. The streets and temples followed the natural curves of the land, so that architecture became a soft echo of the hills and the whisper of the nearby river. It was a place where the boundary between what was made by hands and what was given by nature felt gently blurred, as if the city itself were simply another part of the landscape, settling into a long and patient meditation. And in the terraced fields that rose like green stairs toward the clouds, the Inca nurtured a quiet abundance of life. They cultivated over 3,000 kinds of potatoes, tubers in soft hues of purple, yellow, and a delicate pink that looked like the first blush of dawn on a misty morning. From this gentle harvest, they discovered a peaceful way to let time itself preserve the food through the method of chuño. Under the cool mountain air and the midnight frosts that arrived like silent visitors, the potatoes were naturally freeze-dried, their essence held in a timeless slumber. This was a patient art, no rush, no hurry, just the earth and the seasons working together to sustain generations in a slow, unhurried rhythm. The Inca also held a special reverence for gold, but not as a thing to be traded or hoarded. They called it the sweat of the sun, a sacred material that captured the warm, life-giving light of the heavens and held it gently in solid form. Skilled artisans would craft delicate ornaments and shimmering plates that seemed to glow with their own inner slumber within the dim, quiet interiors of the Coricancha temple. In those sacred spaces, the gold did not flash or dazzle. It simply breathed a soft, steady light, like sunlight filtered through a layer of cloud, offering a calm and constant reminder of the divine source above. It was a material for contemplation, not for commerce, a way to bring the sky's warmth into the stillness of the stone. This vast empire moved not with the clatter of armies, but with a spirit of communal harmony through a system called the mita. It was a labor agreement woven from threads of shared responsibility, where citizens offered their time and energy to public works, not as a burden, but as a natural part of belonging to a greater whole. In the steady rhythm of this shared effort, roads were laid and temples raised, all in a feeling of collective calm. And in return for this contribution, the state made a gentle promise. Every family, from the highest to the humblest, would be provided with warm, heavy clothing and nourishing food from the royal storehouses. It was a circle of care, a quiet balance, where the work of many hands ensured no one was left to face the cold or hunger alone, a lullaby of mutual support. High in the thin, cool air of the Andes, where the sky feels close enough to touch, the Inca lived in peaceful balance with the Apus, the spirits of the sacred mountains. These towering peaks were not just rock and snow, they were living beings, guardians whose presence could be felt in the crisp breeze and the deep silence of the high passes. To honor them, people would leave small, humble offerings in hidden crevices. A few cocoa leaves, a tiny gemstone, a quiet moment of gratitude. In this simple act, they drifted into a state of quiet contemplation, their minds settling into a soft thankfulness for the protection of the peaks that watched over their world. It was a relationship built on gentle respect, a whispered conversation between the human heart and the ancient, enduring mountains that held the sky. In a land where the written word never took root, the Inca wove their memories into soft, colorful strings. They called this gentle library the quipu, a flowing tapestry of knots and chords. Each twist of the thread held meaning, each hue a different category of thought. Through the simple act of tying, they stored vast amounts of knowledge, census counts and harvest yields, all drifting through a language of touch and color. There was no need for ink when your fingers could read the silent stories hanging in the quiet air. Across those same ancient mountains, the Inca laid a web of stone paths stretching over 25,000 miles. These roads were not forced upon the land, but carved gently into the rock, as if the earth itself had dreamed them into being. Along these winding trails moved the chasquis, swift messengers who glided through the thin air with easy grace. They passed their news from hand to hand in a rhythmic relay, a living pulse flowing gently across the spine of the Andes. The messages traveled like a soft breeze, never breaking the stillness of the high peaks. High among the clouds rests Machu Picchu, a city built with a quiet kind of precision. The walls were assembled using a technique known as ashlar masonry, where each stone was shaped to nestle perfectly against its neighbor. No mortar binds these massive blocks together. They simply lean softly against one another, a calm communion of granite and patience. Even when the earth trembles beneath them, the stones remain steady and serene, rocking gently, as if to soothe the mountain itself back to sleep. Their touch on the land did not stop at the peaks. The Inca folded the steep slopes into elegant agricultural terraces, vast green staircases descending gracefully into the misty valleys. These tiered gardens were designed to capture the morning fog and divert water with a slow, patient rhythm. The stone walls held the moisture close, allowing the soil to drink deeply over time. In the cool, crisp air, a rich variety of corn and potatoes flourished, feeding an empire from the sky. It was a quiet collaboration between human hands and the drifting clouds. All of this was held together by a deep spiritual reverence for the sun, known to them as Inti. They saw the sun as the golden source of all warmth and life, a divine heartbeat pouring down from above. Their most sacred temple in the city of Cusco was lined with sheets of shimmering gold. When the daylight entered, the metal walls caught the soft, amber glow and reflected it back, filling the sanctuary with a honeyed light. To stand within that quiet space was to feel surrounded by a gentle, living radiance, a moment suspended between earth and the heavens. High in the thin and quiet mountain air, the Inca shared a deep, calming bond with llamas and alpacas. These serene animals were not chosen for their strength alone, but for their incredibly gentle nature and the soft, warm wool they gifted. Imagine them moving slowly along the ancient trails, their steps barely whispering against the stones. They carried light but precious cargoes, bundles of pure salt from faraway flats, and textiles woven with the colors of a fading evening sky. In this peaceful manner, like a slow and living river, These creatures connected the remote villages, weaving a pattern of silent trade and quiet companionship across the vast highlands. The vast Inca realm was gently unified by a peaceful social structure known as the mita. This was not a system of hard demands, but rather a soft and shared responsibility to the community. Every citizen would offer their time and their hands like a gentle stream joining a greater river. They came together to weave strong bridges from resilient grasses, bridges that could float over the deepest and quietest valleys. They also worked to fill the communal storehouses with golden grains, each seed a small promise of security. In this way, the labor was a kind of quiet song, ensuring that all were cared for and that the rhythm of life flowed smoothly from season to season. Within the sacred landscape, the Inca sculpted remarkable places known as moray. Imagine deep circular terraces descending into the earth, like giant bowls cradling secrets. Each level in these sunken gardens captured its own tiny climate, a different breath of warm or cool air. Here, in these natural amphitheaters of quiet, Inca botanists could watch the slow, silent life of plants. They observed how seeds rested peacefully in the cool, dark soil, dreaming their green dreams before slowly reaching for the sun. These living laboratories were a gentle dialogue between the people and the land, a way to understand the soft and patient language of nature's rhythms. It was as if the earth itself was speaking in hushed tones, sharing its ancient wisdom with those who listened. In the quiet plazas of Inca cities, where sunlight fell softly on stone, the people moved with a gentle grace. They were cloaked in garments woven from the finest vicuña wool, a material so light it felt like a breath of mountain air, and so soft it could be a cloud's caress. These exquisite textiles were dyed with rich, natural hues and adorned with precise geometric patterns. Every diamond, every zigzag, told a quiet story, whispering of the wearer's lineage, their place in the community, and a deep connection to ancestors long past. These clothes were more than mere fabric. They were a silent and visual poem, an intimate language of identity worn directly over the heart. The immense Andes Mountains were never just earth and rock to the Inca. They were the Apus, the sacred and protective spirits who dwelled among the eternal snows and watched over the world below. The Inca lived in a quiet rhythm with these towering guardians, their daily life a gentle echo of the mountain's ancient pulse. They honored the Apus by offering small sacred tributes of coca leaves, placing them softly on the cold ground as a prayer for harmony. This simple, silent act was a whisper of respect, a way of ensuring a calm and protected life beneath the shifting canopy of clouds. It was a bond of deep, unspoken peace that cradled their entire existence. You're still here, drifting softly among the Apus. That's lovely. Let the quiet spirit of the mountains wrap around you, like a warm alpaca wool blanket. I'll keep murmuring. You just breathe deeply and rest. Let us drift now to a land high in the clouds, where the Inca people wove a gentle tapestry of knowledge. Not with ink on paper, but with soft, colored strings. They called it the quipu. This wondrous system used knots and hues to hold complex records. Imagine fingers tracing over tiny silken threads, each knot a number, each color a category. There was no written alphabet, only the tender touch of fibers storing the stories of the empire. Census counts of families, the paths of stars, all rested quietly in these tactile libraries. They were a silent language waiting for patient hands to read them, a dream woven in cotton and wool, soft against the skin. Deep in the Andes, the Inca carved a peaceful ribbon of roads that stretched over 25,000 miles. These quiet paths meandered across jagged peaks and through lush green valleys. They were like veins of the earth, carrying life from the highlands to the coasts. The road was a soft thread stitching the empire together into a single, breathing body. Messengers, swift and sure, glided along these routes, their footsteps a soft whisper carrying news between distant cities. In the thin, cold air of the mountains, their breath formed tiny clouds, but they never rushed. They moved in a steady, peaceful rhythm, as if the road itself carried them along in a quiet, endless flow. High upon a mountain ridge, Machu Picchu floats in the mist. This marvel was built with a technique called ashlar, where each stone is cut so precisely that they fit together without any mortar. The huge blocks rest against one another in a quiet, eternal embrace. The joinery is so perfect that not even a slender blade of grass could slip between them. The stones seem to hold each other with a gentle, knowing patience, as if they have always been there. In the morning fog that drifts through the ruins, the city appears weightless, a dream of stone suspended between earth and sky. And no mortar means no harsh bindings, only perfect balance. To feed their people, the Inca sculpted the steep mountains into gentle green terraces. These were known as andanes, floating gardens that stepped gracefully down the slopes. Each step was a cradle of fertile earth, held by low stone walls. They caught the drifting mist and the warm sun, creating a peaceful microclimate for life. In these serene landscapes, over 3,000 varieties of potatoes were grown. Can you see them? The tiny purple, yellow, and red potatoes nestled in the dark soil. The mountainside became a soft, stepped quilt of green and brown, a place where the mountain itself seemed to breathe and grow food from its stone body in a silent, green rhythm. The empire was guided by the Sapa Inca, a ruler believed to be the direct descendant of Inti, the warm and golden sun god. Every morning the sun rose over the peaks and touched the gold worn by the Sapa Inca, and it was as if the heavens themselves were saying, "This one is mine." All the gold worn by royalty was not just ornament, but a reflection of that soft, glowing light from the heavens. It shimmered gently, reminding the people of their connection to the sun. In the quiet of the highlands, the light played softly upon the golden emblems, a quiet nod to the divine. The Sapa Inca walked in that golden glow, a living bridge between the sky and the earth. And so the Inca Empire rests quietly in the high Andes, a dream of stone and sun. High in the quiet heights of the mountains, where the air is thin and the clouds drift slowly, the Inca people found a deep connection with the alpaca and the llama. These gentle creatures, with their large, soft eyes, carried a warmth within their wool that felt like a hug from the sun. The Incas carefully gathered this fluffy wool, spinning it into yarn and weaving it into clothes that shielded them from the cold mountain breezes. And on the narrow, misty trails, the llamas walked calmly beside them, carrying light loads and offering a peaceful presence that made the long journeys feel like a shared meditation. Their soft footsteps on the ancient paths became a quiet rhythm of companionship. From these high trails, the Incas built a great capital, a city called Cusco, designed not just for living but to honor the spirit of the land. They shaped the entire city like a sleeping puma, a sacred animal of strength and grace. The stone streets curved and wound like a gentle river, flowing around hills and leading to a peaceful central plaza. Here, under a wide blanket of night sky, the people would gather, feeling the cool stone beneath their feet and the glow of stars above, their hearts beating together in the quiet heart of the puma. In this plaza, markets hummed softly with life, and children played as elders watched, all held within the protective shape that symbolized their grounded power. Throughout this stone city, water sang a constant, soothing song. The Incas carved channels of rock with tender precision, guiding pure mountain springs down into every neighborhood. Listen to the trickle. It flowed like a whispered lullaby, feeding sunken gardens where herbs and flowers grew thick with color. Women would gather at the channels to fill clay pots, the cool water sparkling like liquid silver under the high-altitude sun. Every fountain murmured its own quiet song of plenty, and the air was always fresh with the gentle sound of moving water, a reminder that life itself was a gift flowing from the peaks. This rhythmic flow brought a sense of calm to the city, as if the mountains themselves were breathing through the stone. The Inca way of life was woven together by a spirit of shared labor, a sacred practice they called mita. Imagine, in a gentle dream, each person offering their skills not for personal gain but for the harmony of all. Farmers would pause their own work to help build terraces or repair a neighbor's roof, knowing that the favor would return like a circle of kindness. Bridges across deep gorges were kept strong through this communal care, and great storehouses stood full of golden corn, enough to feed every child through the leanest times. This was not a duty weighed down by force, but a light, willing dance of cooperation, where every pair of hands wove a stronger tapestry of togetherness. And when the Inca raised their eyes to the highest peaks, they saw not just stone and snow, but the Apus, the ancient mountain spirits who watched over them. On those lofty summits, they built small, serene sanctuaries, places of perfect stillness where the wind was the only voice. Priests would climb up to offer prayers, feeling the sacred floating quiet, as if time itself held its breath. There, among the drifting clouds and the silent, eternal peaks, they left simple offerings of shells and woven cloth, honoring the guardians that gave them water, shelter, and dreams. In that thin air, high above the world, the soul could rest in a peace as deep as the mountains themselves. Imagine a language made not of sounds, but of touch. High in the Andes, the Inca people wove their thoughts into colored strings. This was the quipu, a flowing network of chords and tiny knots. Census numbers, the contents of great storehouses, messages sent across vast distances, all were captured in these tactile records. The chords carried meaning without a single written word, like a silent conversation moving softly through the empire. It was a poetry of thread, read only by those who knew how to feel its gentle whisper. Far above those paths, resting between the earth and the stars, sits Machu Picchu. Its stones are cut with a care that feels almost like a dream. Using a technique called ashlar masonry, the builders carved each massive block to fit perfectly with its neighbor. The joints are so seamless that not even a thin blade of grass could find a resting place. This perfect union allows the ancient walls to sway gently during tremors, breathing with the mountain, keeping the sacred city peaceful and secure beneath the drifting clouds. Connecting this hidden sanctuary to the far corners of the empire was a road called the Llapak Yuan. It stretched over 40,000 kilometers, winding across snowy peaks and deep valleys. These stone pathways were not made for wheels but for the soft, steady steps of llamas. They guided the chasquis, royal messengers who ran with a quiet rhythm, carrying news and small treasures from one end of the world to the other. The road itself was a thread of stillness weaving through the rugged land. In the thin, cold air of those high places, the Inca discovered a gentle kind of magic. They created a food called chuño, a potato preserved by the frost. The tubers were left out under the cold night sky, and as the sun rose, people would tread upon them softly to press out the moisture. This simple, patient process dried them into lasting nourishment. These quiet granaries held the promise of survival, storing life in the stillness of a frozen potato for years upon years. To nurture their crops, they sculpted the steep mountainsides into undulating terraces called andenes. These looked like giant green staircases climbing toward the sky. Stone walls held the warm sunlight and kept the soil from washing away. Corn and quinoa grew there in a serene, tiered landscape, a peaceful garden carved into the slopes. Each level was a resting place, a step where life could take root and flourish, held carefully in the hands of the mountain. Imagine the Inca Empire, high in the Andes, where life moved to a gentle, timeless rhythm. The Inca looked up at the towering mountains and saw them as elders, wise and eternal. They called them Apus, sacred spirits that stood guard over the valleys day and night. With a quiet reverence, the people would leave simple gifts at their feet, a handful of coca leaves, a smooth seashell carried from distant shores. This small act was a gentle conversation, a way to honor the balance between the solid earth and the open sky. In the crisp, high-altitude air, the peaks seemed to listen, watching over the people with a serene and ageless patience. These offerings, so small and humble, kept the harmony flowing like a gentle stream. In their daily lives, a beautiful rhythm of togetherness pulsed through the empire. It was called mita, a simple exchange where people offered their time to the common good. Neighbors would come together to raise a bridge or polish a temple floor. This shared work created a quiet unity, a feeling of being held by one another. Everyone contributed, and in return everyone knew they would be cared for. Through this mita, the whole empire felt like a family, bound together by gentle, willing hands. And beyond the labor, there was gold, but not as currency. The Inca saw it as the tears of the sun, liquid light solidified on earth. In the most sacred temple, the Coricancha, entire walls shimmered with golden plates. When the morning sun streamed in, a warm, honeyed glow would fill every corner, bathing the space in a divine radiance. They never bartered with this gold. It was too pure for that. Instead, they returned it to the sun's own house, letting it reflect the solar warmth back to the heavens. Standing there must have felt like being inside a gentle ray of light, wrapped in a quiet, celestial peace. The soft radiance filled every soul with a quiet wonder. The softness of their world extended to what they wore. The Inca kept a special kind of llama, with wool as gentle as morning mist. From this fleece, skilled hands wove textiles that were both art and comfort. They dyed the threads with colors from the earth, rich reds from minerals, deep blues from plants. These fabrics wrapped the people in warmth, guarding them against the crisp mountain air as they moved through their day. The patterns told stories of the cosmos, woven into a cozy shield. Each garment was a hug from the earth itself, each thread holding a prayer for warmth and protection. And high above the valleys, where canyons plunged into shadowy depths, the Inca built bridges that danced with the wind. These were not rigid structures of stone or steel, but living suspensions woven from tough grass. They swayed softly over the chasms, breathing with the mountain air, trusting its flow. These bridges were a humble connection, thread by grass thread, joining distant communities in a flexible embrace. With each step, the bridge would move in a gentle rhythm, as if it were a companion rather than a construction. Crossing one must have felt like floating on the breath of the earth itself, a perfect harmony of wind and abyss, never fighting, only swaying. Sleep now, wrapped in the quiet wisdom of these mountains. Let your dreams drift like a grass bridge in the wind. The Inca architects crafted massive stone walls with an ashlar technique so precise that not even a thin blade of grass could slip between them. These seamless joints allowed the structures to drift and settle during tremors, floating back into place with a deep, peaceful stability. The stones rested warm against each other, their surfaces smooth as a river stone, their fits so perfect that sunlight couldn't find a seam. When the earth shook, the walls swayed gently, settling back into a quiet, eternal embrace, like a silent dance of resilience. You could almost hear the soft sigh of granite, a whisper of security in the night. It was a skill born of stillness, a craft that hummed with the mountain's own patience. To manage their vast empire, the Inca developed the quipu, a sophisticated system of knotted, colorful strings used for record-keeping. These soft threads held the secrets of census data and harvests, whispered through the fingers of specialized officials called quipucamayaks. The strings were dyed in warm hues, and each knot was a memory, a gentle pulse of information in the vast, silent highlands. The officials would close their eyes and let the cords slide through their hands, reading the soft truths of a thriving empire. The quipu felt like a living tale, each fiber a breath of the past, cradled in the quiet palms of those who understood. In the dim light of a stone room, these quipas glowed with the calm of ancient wisdom. High in the misty peaks of the Andes, the Inca created an intricate network of terraces called andinas, giant green staircases carved into the mountains. These gardens gently captured rainwater and warmth, allowing a variety of nourishing crops to grow in the quiet embrace of the highlands. The terraces seemed to breathe with the mountain, each step a cradle for life. Soft mists veiled the stones, and the warmth of the sun was trapped in the soil, nurturing a symphony of crops in a deep, soothing stillness.
The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and corn leaves, a comforting veil that wrapped the slopes in a tender green silence. Down the tiers, water dripped like a soft pulse, feeding roots that stretched deep into the earth.
The Hapakuahuan was a sprawling system of royal roads stretching over 40,000 kilometers, winding softly through rugged peaks and deep valleys. This network allowed the empire to breathe, connecting distant villages through a rhythmic flow of messengers and trade. The paths were like veins of the earth, pulsing with a gentle, steady cadence. In the quiet dawn, you could almost hear the whisper of travelers, the soft rustle of llama wool carrying stories from far away. The stones underfoot were worn smooth by time, each step a muted echo in the vast Andean quiet. They were pathways of the wind, silent conduits where the empire's soul flowed like a warm current. The Chasques were the empire's fleet-footed messengers, traveling in a relay system to carry news across the mountains. They moved with a steady, rhythmic grace, delivering verbal messages and quippus from the distant coast to the heart of Cusco in a matter of days. Each chasqui ran with a focused calm, their breath even as they ascended steep passes. The quippus they carried were like heartbeats in their hands, transmitting the empire's vital signs from edge to core. Their footfalls were a soft drumming on the earth, a fleeting whisper of life, connecting the vast expanse of the realm. And as they passed the quippus, it was like handing over a piece of the sky, weightless yet profound. Let your breath slow and your eyelids grow heavy. I want to take you to a place where the air is thin and the stones hold centuries of stillness. A place high in the Andes where the world below fades to mist. Listen to the quiet and let the mountain silence wrap around you like a soft, woven blanket. Machu Picchu, a sanctuary of silent stone, sleeps between clouds and earth. Built around 1450, its terraces follow the mountain's curves as if the rock itself sighed into shape. The mist drifts, cool and soft, over ancient walls. Every stone was placed with a gentle touch, a whisper of balance. Up here, you can feel the deep harmony, human hands listening to the land cradling the stone. The air is still, and you are safe. The Inca felt the sun's warmth as a golden whisper. They called gold the sweat of Inti, their sun god, a metal that glowed with a divine, tender light. In the temples, golden plates lined the walls, polished until they held the soft morning. At dawn, the first rays would brush the gold, filling courtyards with a peaceful, honeyed glow. Can you imagine standing there? The light breathes against the stones, a warm caress. It's a light you could almost feel on your skin, a gentle reminder of the sun's quiet power. Close your eyes and let that golden light wash over you. Deep in the earth, the potato held the heartbeat of the Inca. They grew thousands of varieties, in purples so dark they seemed to drink the night, yellows like captured sunlight, reds as soft as clay. In the crisp mountain air, they freeze-dried these tubers, spreading them out on cold stone under the vast, star-filled sky. The Chuño slept in huge storehouses, a quiet promise against the hungry seasons. Each tiny morsel carried the memory of rain and soil, a stored warmth for the long, cold nights. Feel the texture on your tongue, earthy, tender, sustaining. The ancient city of Cusco was shaped like a sleeping puma. The great fortress of Sacsayhuaman formed its head, with stone teeth biting the edge of the sky. Streets curved like a spine, hugging the land's sacred geometry. To walk there was to move inside a story, where stone and spirit intertwined beneath the wide, silent canopy. You could walk these streets and feel the puma's quiet breathing. Even now, under the soft hum of modern life, you can feel that ancient shape, grounded and vast, holding the city in a deep, patient embrace, like a heartbeat beneath the pavement. And then there were the textiles. The Inca wove their stories into cloth, using the softest wool from alpacas and vicuñas. It felt like a cloud's breath against your skin, so gentle, so warm. The colors came from the earth, indigo cochineal and the deep green of moss. Artisans spun and dyed the fibers slowly, their fingers moving through a warm, patient rhythm. Patterns flowed like rivers, carrying memories of lineage and sacred valleys. Wrapping yourself in such a textile was like being held by the Andes themselves, cradled in a living history. Each thread glowed with a quiet, tactile light, a whisper of touch across centuries. Let that softness enfold you now, drift deeper now, into the stillness of these ancient mountains. The stones are quiet, the gold is warm, the potatoes sleep, the city dreams, and the woven threads hold you gently. The world is soft now and you are drifting. Breathe, and let go. In the dim, quiet spaces where memory lived, the Inca wove a silent library from simple chords. Picture these quipus, lengths of softly spun alpaca wool, dyed the color of earth and twilight. Each knot, tied with a careful, knowing finger, was a word in a tactile language, a census record, a storehouse inventory, all remembered in the gentle, rhythmic pulse of the strings. You can almost feel the whisper of each strand brushing against your palm, the subtle bump of a knot holding a family's name, a year's harvest, the gentle weight of a whole world recorded silently. There was no ink, no sound, just the deep, warm certainty of a language you could hold in your hand and feel against your skin, a still and steady comfort. And from these records, feel the vast, quiet air of the mountain peaks, where the Inca sculpted the earth into emerald terraces that float like gentle steps against the stone. These gardens of soft, layered green caught the thin sunlight and cradled the warm, dark soil, growing maize and potatoes in a deep, harmonious rhythm with the land. Each terrace was a breath of patience, a careful shaping of the slope into a lush, productive cradle, cradling life with a tenderness that stilled the wind. The mountains themselves seemed to breathe out a warm, nourishing calm, sustaining the people through this elegant and silent embrace, a still and bountiful partnership. Now, rest your thoughts on the hushed air of Machu Picchu, where gigantic stones lean into each other with a tenderness born of patient hands. Through a technique called ashlar, each rough face was polished until the fit was so absolute, not a whisper of a breeze could slip between. You can trace your finger along the seam and feel nothing but a perfect, silent union, as if the rocks had grown together over eons. They sleep together now, these ancient gray walls, locked in a peaceful, timeless embrace, needing no mortar to hold their silent and enduring form against the quiet centuries. And to bind their world, imagine a thread of road so vast it unwinds for 25,000 miles, winding through the still, cold heights of the empire. The Chasqui run these paths, their feet a soft drumbeat on the earth as they carry a message from one hidden station to the next. They move like a breath through the landscape, a swift, silent pulse keeping the far-flung kingdom connected in a deep, flowing current. You can almost hear the faint susurrus of their passage, the relay of news weaving through the Cordillera like a quiet murmur under the wide, starry sky. Finally, draw your senses high into the thin, crisp air, where the Inca coaxed from the earth a living palette of soft purples, golden yellows, and dusky reds. Over 3,000 varieties of potatoes flourished on those serene terraces, a deep and diverse tapestry of life that guaranteed no one would go hungry. Each tuber was a small, warm promise from the soil, a quiet, nourishing gift that tasted of the mountain's generosity. The fields lay still under the vast sky, their bounty a gentle, steady rhythm of survival, a deep and comforting assurance that the people would always be provided for. Sleep now, wrapped in the stillness of these ancient ways. Picture the city of Cusco, cradled in the high valley, its streets laid out in the soft, silent shape of a puma. The very stones seemed to breathe with the land, following the gentle curves of the valley and the watchful peaks. It was a place where the boundary between the sacred and the natural world melted away into a single, peaceful form. The layout flowed naturally, as if the earth itself had whispered the design to those who listened, guiding them to build a city that was a living part of the landscape. Gold was never a thing of cold trade, but the warm, sacred sweat of the sun itself. It was laid upon temple walls to catch the soft, golden light of Andean afternoons. Those shimmering surfaces held the day's last tender warmth, a divine embrace frozen in time. To stand before them was to bathe in the lingering memory of a sun-touched prayer, to feel the deep, eternal light of the heavens reflected on mortal ground. There was a quiet rhythm to their labor, a gentle give and take they called mita. Every pair of hands offering work to the community knew they were held in return, wrapped in a promise of care and protection. This was the deep, steady heartbeat of a peaceful empire, one village, one soul at a time. The communal rhythm ensured that in the farthest reaches, a serene stillness could settle over every life, with each contribution a silent stitch in a fabric of shared support. More precious than gold were the textiles, woven from the soft, warm wool of alpacas and vicuñas. Fingers would trace the intricate patterns, feeling the floating stories of the stars and the ancestors. These sacred fabrics cradled the very memory of the world in their gentle warp and weft. They were not just cloth, but a whispered tapestry of cosmic rhythms and deep, unbroken lineages, a soft embrace from the highlands that held the pulse of the universe. In the high, thin air of the Andes, they watched the heavens with a patient, breath-held gaze. Temples were placed to catch the first and last light of the solstices, aligning their earthly stone with the sun's slow journey. This was a quiet nod to the deep, steady drift of the universe, a harmony between the land and the infinite. Their existence became a seamless thread in the vast, still fabric of the cosmos, a peaceful recognition that they were not apart from the stars, but held within their silent, wandering song. Soft and vivid, the quipu's knotted strings held the empire's memory, a tactile record of census and tales flowing silently over mountain passes without a single written word. Stone-walled stairs ascending into thin air, floating gardens drifting on water's skin, the Inca wove a living tapestry of potatoes, 1,000 kinds in gentle accord with the mountain's slope. Polished granite blocks embraced without mortar, their seams sealed so tightly not even a blade of grass can slip through. Machu Picchu stands as a silent fortress of eternal calm. A serpent of stone spanning 25,000 miles, the Hapakian bore Chasqui like a gentle breath across the land, their footsteps light as whispers from coastal shores to mountain crowns. Cusco, a puma resting in stone, its streets flowing with the earth's curves, where human hands sculpted a city that breathed in soft accord with the wild landscape's gentle form. A single breath shared by many hands, lifting stone and memory to build a bridge that held not just weight, but an entire village's care, woven into the warm fabric of mutual support. They called it the Tears of the Sun, a sacred light caught in golden form, hammered into delicate ornaments that shimmered like captured fragments of an Andean sunset, reflecting the heavens back to themselves. High in the thin, quiet air, the mountain frost settled over harvested crops like a whispered gift from the passing clouds, a slow, natural alchemy transforming the bounty of the earth into sustenance that would last through the silent seasons. From the soft, warm wool of alpacas and vicuñas, their hands wove more than fabric. They wove stories in intricate geometric patterns, dyed with the gentle hues of quiet valley plants and minerals, each thread a quiet meditation on beauty. The world was not flat but layered, a slow rhythmic breath between the floating mist of the mountain peaks and the steady ancient pulse of the soil below, a quiet meditation on the sacred balance that held all things together. And with that, I think our journey through these ancient mountains has reached its quiet end for tonight. Your mind has climbed high and now it's time to descend into rest. If this gentle space helped you drift off, please leave a like so others can find it too, and if you subscribe, I'll be here whenever you need me, a quiet voice in the dark waiting to guide you home. Good night, sleep well, and may you dream of stone terraces climbing toward the stars, until we meet again. Rest now, everything is exactly as it should be.